What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. And in this week's video, I'm excited to be doing an interview with Alvaro Becerra. He's a local immigration lawyer here in Ajijic, and he's been working in this area for many years. We've just been chatting off camera about how many years you've been working as an immigration lawyer. Almost 22 years now coming up to, right?
Yes.
So welcome, Alvaro.
Gracias.
Today we're going to be asking Alvaro a whole bunch of questions all about the immigration process, the changes that have happened recently in the requirements to get your permanent, get your temporary resident visas from Mexico. Also, we're going to touch on citizenship as well. So there's going to be lots of interesting questions. Feel free, if we don't cover everything that you may like us to cover, guys, feel free to put a question down in the comments section, or I'll leave Alvaro's contact information as well, so you can contact him directly. Is that okay, Alvaro?
Yeah,
by
that's
email
fine.
And ask him a question personally as well. So welcome to the podcast. Welcome. Thank you so much for allowing me to interview you today.
Gracias, Rich.
Bienvenido.
Gracias.
We're doing this video today in the back of my office.
Nice.
Nice garden, right?
Really nice.
Yeah, we have a beautiful garden. Alvaro, I mean, as we mentioned, Alvaro's been an immigration lawyer. You qualified in 2002. Worked for the Foreign Affairs for a bit, 2006, and then went solo.
Yes.
Opened your own firm in 2006, and been busy ever since, I guess, like mainly working with foreigners, right?
Yes.
Helping, yeah.
Yeah, it's something we call like international private law, and that covers citizenship, and that covers immigration, and apostille things like that.
Oh, okay, great. See, I mean, like, just with that alone, I'm sure over the years you've seen an increase of Americans, Canadians, foreigners in general coming to the area of Lake Chapala.
Yes.
And making it a home, right? I mean, it's become one of those top destinations, and it's you've seen it, how it's increased, how the immigration has increased, the people coming to the area, calling Mexico their home, foreigners calling Mexico home. I mean, you've been in it, you've seen the whole transit. How has it changed?
A lot. I remember when I was younger, I work in Lake Chapala, but I also live in Guadalajara. My main office is there. And I remember 20, 30 years ago, maybe there was not as many foreigners back there and here, and has been a lot in different situations, people retiring from the States and Canada down here, and a lot of other nationalities also moving to Guadalajara even to work. So we have experienced in many ways immigration in different areas of the country, but coming to Lake Chapala, we have seen a lot of baby boomers deciding to call Chapala home.
So the baby boomers boom.
Yes.
In Chapala.
Yes. We can tell that
the booming
for sure.
Baby boomers in Lake Chapala. And I mean, being on the first, I mean, obviously, guys, I help people buy and sell real estate here. And Alvaro's, I mean, we've been working together for years, haven't we? I've been recommending, as soon as I get that question, what do I do with the prices? I'm straight away, Alvaro, please, can you help me answer this client's questions? Because I'm not a lawyer, guys, so I don't want to give advice. That's why we are interviewing Alvaro today.
Gracias.
And we're going to pick his brain about everything, about immigration, the process. So we've got some questions down in front of me. We're going to go through the questions one by one. If you want, we'll put the questions on the screen as well, just so you can kind of see the flow of the conversation, where it's going to go. So I think we'll start. What was the most important common immigration options available for Americans, Canadians, and foreigners in general? I mean, I'm a Brit, so and there's more and more Brits here all the time looking to move to Ajijic. What are the main common options that the first conversation that you have? Where would you take it? I mean, we're gonna break it down bit by bit, guys. So over to you, Alvaro.
Basically, our immigration law says there are many ways in which a person can move into Mexico. And of course, it ended up being similar in every country. If you have a job offer from a company, if you have a wife or a husband who is a Mexican or a resident in Mexico, you have the opportunity to move here. Or if you have a child who was born here, all this would allow you to stay here. But for people coming from the United States and Canada and who is seeking to buy a property or retiring eventually here, is the financial. You need to fulfill some financial requirements in order to move down here. Okay. That would be, and that's the most used process to come down here.
To come to Mexico. Yeah, because most people, I guess, are not married to a Mexican, don't have Mexican kids. If they're just coming to retire here with no job and connections and, history in Mexico.
Yeah, they might be long-term tourists, but possibly not related to a Mexican and possibly not having work or not working anymore.
I mean, they may have some friends down here, American friends, but possibly not a Mexican friends, bloodline Mexican family.
Yeah.
So the most popular one, would it be fair to say, is the temporal, the temporary resident visa for Mexico? Would that be the most popular, or do a lot of people bypass the temporal and go straight to permanente, the permanent resident Mexican visa?
Yeah.
What's the most kind of common in your experience working every day with people?
Okay. Yeah. The immigration law that we're working right now, it was passed and enforced in 2012. And before that, we used to have another immigration categories. We used to call them, we didn't, the law call them non-immigrant, immigrant, and inmigrado. Everybody knows them and keeps talking about them. You can go to the bank and actually they ask for it. The famous FM3 and FM2s.
Oh, I got that. Because when I came to Mexico in 2009, and FM2 and FM3 were still activated then.
Yes, that was it. Yeah. And then we had this change, and then we only got residencia temporal and residencia permanente. The basic difference between those two is that you get a permanente from the beginning, and that is good. That is for life. It's for good. The temporal initially will be given to you one card valid for 1 year, and then you have to make renewals. And you can renew for another year, you can renew for another 2 years, you can renew for 3 more years. So those are the two immigration status that we have right now. And whether getting a temporal, it might be easier in financial terms because the amounts to be shown are lower to get a temporal.
Can we talk about that in a second?
Yes.
We'll come back to that.
Yes, but everybody, at the moment you tell them that permanente is for good, and they wouldn't have to go back to immigration, they wouldn't have to do renewals, they want to jump for the permanente. I have seen people kind of looking for that with so much they want permanente from the beginning. That's the one people looks for.
I never want to renew it. I never want to have to renew my visa, so let's get it. But obviously there are implications about getting and pros and cons, right?
Yes, of course.
A permanent or a temporary to a permanent residency card in Mexico.
Yes.
Can we talk about that? What are the pros and cons?
Yeah, basically, you can tell. For instance, one of the big pros for a temporal is if you live near our border, let's say in the state of Texas or California, maybe you are willing to bring some of your stuff. Maybe you are willing to bring your car. A permanente doesn't allow you to bring a foreign-plated car, while a temporal allows you to keep it. And it's the same thing. You get initially a permit for you, and once you extend it to the temporal, your car permit can be extended. And then you make renewals, and you can live as a temporal up to 4 years down here, so your car can stay with you all those 4 years with you. But that's one of the benefits. The benefit of the permanente we started talking about from the beginning. You can avoid the renewals. You don't have to go to immigration, but you know about this. You have experienced it. There are things that temporales and permanentes need to do always. If you change your address, if you have a Mexican wife, that means if you get married or if you get a divorce or all those things, or if you get a job, or if you quit a job, all those things you need to keep reporting to immigration, no matter if you are a temporal or a permanente. So this idea of getting rid of immigration for life just by the fact that you are a permanente is something. Those things are equal for the two of them, but basically the difference with a permanente is that the permanente, you don't have to make renewals. That's a good point. But a temporal is easier to get in terms of financials and allows you to bring a car. That might be. The rest of the things, they are basically the same. You can get as many services and as many benefits to be either of them.
Okay. That's fantastic. And the main, I mean, I can see that it's like what you're mentioning. It's really similar. I mean, I was a temporal and then I became a permanente, so I know exactly the implications to both. But as soon as I came to Mexico, personally, I drove a Mexican car on a temporal. So you can actually as well, guys, you can drive a Mexican plated car on a temporal.
Yes.
But you can't drive an American car or foreign plated car on a permanente.
Exactly.
All right.
That's it.
So they're I would say the main things. I mean, I know you keep touching on the financials, and I'm sure this is something that's recently I've heard on the grapevine. I don't know if it's correct, but I've heard on the grapevine that there has been some adjustments to the amount of funds that you have to show and provide coming into the country as a temporal, temporary, or permanent resident. Can we talk about that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, great.
For instance, what I want to explain in detail is how we do calculate that. When you in this country, to determine pricing and fines, the federal government had a system in which they say, okay, you did something, we're going to give you a fine. They cannot just give you an X number. They use the minimum wage to calculate that for years. Since I was born, I remember that doing it. That has been moving slowly to a different pattern. But in 2012, when this law was passed, minimum wage remained that. So the thing is, the minimum wage is the base to calculate your financials to move to Mexico.
First time I've ever heard that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
The thing here is that the law says that you have to prove that you have certain numbers of time, the minimum wage, in order to qualify for a temporal. Certain number of times the minimum wage to qualify for a permanente. And up to 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago, the minimum wage in Mexico was really, really low. First thing that possibly you need to know, or the people who's watching need to know, is in Mexico, we don't get paid by the hour. In Mexico, we get paid by the day. So the minimum wage, it's supposed to be an amount that covers 8 hours of work. In 2018, the minimum wage was 80 pesos per day, which was about $4 at the time. So what this government has been doing has been increasing the minimum wage. So up to these days, in 2024, minimum wage is about 248 pesos per day. So that is what? I don't know, $25, $22 US dollars per day. So that thing...
Almost 4 almost times by 3.5.
Okay, so...
Almost, right? So it's 80 pesos.
No, that was back then. Today, the minimum wage is 248 pesos.
248. So we're talking about,
it's what? $10? No, it's $10 would be 170 pesos.
It's about $12. So it's actually...
yeah, $12 because it was like $4 back then. Now would be like $12 or $13.
So since 2020 to 2024, the minimum wage has increased 3 times.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Threefold.
Yeah, and not that everybody or a lot of people makes that money. Actually, a lot of people makes more. But if you work in a little place and you're getting paid minimum wage, now you will get about 250 pesos. Unfortunately, that has hit directly the people willing to move to Mexico, because now the amount requested to come to live under a temporal or a permanente, it's like 3 times higher than was 6 years ago.
Thank you for explaining. That's really clear. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I remember talking to a person like 2 years ago and saying this increase is gonna cause discomfort in a lot of people, or maybe not making Mexico their first choice. But the thing is, actually, I know that this has been good for the general people too. So that's basically what I wanted to explain, and that's it. Certain numbers of times the minimum wage, it's what it's required to apply.
Can we talk about the requirements then?
Yes, of
because
course.
Obviously now there is a fixed number due to that calculation
Yes.
changing. So let me give, if I give you a scenario as a temporal and a permanente,
Okay.
what would be the cost requirement, or the what would you have to show coming into the country as a retiree, not to come and work, but as a retiree to come in on a temporal
Okay.
in US dollars?
In US
Yeah.
dollars.
And we can put the equivalent in pesos if you want to see it.
Yeah, I think the amount, we have a very specific amount, right? It would be around like $4,000, I believe, to get a temporal to be shown per month.
And how would they need to show that? Through savings?
No, yeah, but that would be one of the cases,
Yeah.
savings.
Yeah.
And the other one would be like showing that you are collecting Social Security, and that comes into
Comes in
your
once.
monthly.
And it doesn't matter if it's coming into it'll probably be coming into an American bank account. As long as you can show,
Yes.
it doesn't matter where the bank account is.
It does matter in some senses, depending where you're applying. Something that I wanted to talk about is the regular process to apply for a permit to live to Mexico. Something that it's really important. I didn't knew you at the time you applied, but I don't know how was yours. But regularly, for a person who does not have a Mexican relative, the process usually is you have to get a hold of a Mexican consulate or a Mexican embassy. Yeah, that it might be a little bit complicated back in England because we only have our embassy in London, but we have the Mexican embassy in Washington, D.C., and we have over 50 consulates of Mexico across the United States and 7 or 9 across Canada. The thing is, you have to get a hold of the consulate and you have to go with them, secure an appointment, of course, and bring them your paperwork. As a result of your visit, and if everything is correct, they may give you the visa, which will be a little sticker glued to your passport. With that sticker, you travel down here, and once you enter Mexico, you complete the process. So the process takes place in different locations. You start where you live to see if you qualify. After that, you travel to Mexico within a reasonable period of time, because then we are assuming that then you're moving down here. So the process starts there, it's concluded here. And those amounts need to be shown when you visit the consulate.
Okay, great. So you're backtracking to the amounts. And that timeline process, so from day one to the day that you arrive in Mexico to get the paperwork finalized in Mexico, what's the timeline like? How long will it take?
It will,
on average.
offering a timeline would be a little bit complicated, because it will depend on how easy or difficult is to get into a consulate. And if you can get a hold of the consulate, if you decide to start your process today, and if you pick up the phone and you are working with a consulate and they respond to you today and they give you an appointment for tomorrow, and you show up tomorrow and you qualify, and they give you the visa tomorrow, you have 6 months to come to Mexico to complete the process. How long immigration might be taking, that also may depend on the Office of Immigration that you're visiting, how many people you have there, how equipped they are, and it might take just a few days or may take a few weeks. But if you try to do it, let's say maybe a month or 2 months, but because it's like a time frame up at a consulate and down here, traveling down here to complete the process. The Chapala Immigration Office has been working perfectly. even if despite the situations they may face, they are great. I work with them closely, and I work with people closely in Guadalajara. So those are two very good offices, but there might be other offices. It's something that hasn't changed, and it would be really pertinent or prudent to say is our legal time frames haven't changed. For instance, legally, if you go and you apply to a consulate and you say, I want my visa today, legally the consulate has the possibility to say, we will take 10 working days to reply that. That hasn't changed. So they can take 1 to up to 10 days to respond. But usually many consulates would do it in 1 day. Many.
In the same day.
In the same day.
Okay.
But many others may take up to 10 working days. And here at immigration, legally, once you show up to complete your process, they have 20 working days to respond. That means 4 weeks. But they have been working fast, and they can process in just a few days or something. But if something comes up and they have a situation, they can go back to their legal time frame and say, sorry, we're going to do it that way. So those are the kind of things. We know that sometimes people is like still working and they're trying to secure a temporal or a permanente before they retire or before the increases that we're seeing or facing. But sometimes it's a little bit difficult, and those things they have made like administrative improvements that have made, but we can have all those kind of things. But it's just a general panorama.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm hearing in between what you're saying, Alvaro. So it could take, the quicker you do the process in the US, the better the consulate you go to. Or if you go to Washington, you go straight to the embassy.
Yeah.
All right. Or the 50 consulates dotted around, or the 10 consulates in Canada. The quicker you do that process, come to Mexico, you've got 20 days. As soon as you hit Mexican soil and go straight to the immigration, call Alvaro.
Gracias. Yes, please do.
Call Alvaro, and then he will walk you through the process. And it takes about 20 days. But they have been doing it quicker.
They have been doing less than that for sure. Yeah, but the 20 days is the time frame that I would like to say. Of course, if we work it out fast and we try to coordinate, we can offer a short period of time. But I just wanted to refer what is the legal time frame.
And normally, in the 20 days when you hit the Mexican soil, guys, and you put the application in, you can't leave Mexico normally, right? You can't leave Mexico. There are special requirements if you have to leave, but normally you would have to stay here the whole time until you get your your fingerprints and your photo done, and then you get your card, and then you're free to then go and come back if you wish. Is that fair enough to say?
There is a legal procedure that you can do to get a travel document while your process is taking place, but has a lot of implications, and they don't like to do it anymore. They are saying we work really fast, we're gonna get your card to you, so they don't like. And plus, they are limited. Within the immigration system, if your process is in process, and you prove them that you have an actual emergency, like you need to go back to you have a relative really ill and in a hospital, but with evidence. They may give you that. Okay. But at the moment they hit a button and the process has been approved and you only need to show up to do fingerprints and pictures, they can no longer give you that.
That's the process. It's the same process for temporal or permanente, right?
Yes.
The only thing that changes, I mean, you mentioned, if we can go back to the amount.
Mm-hmm.
The amount, so you mentioned it's 4,000 being a temporal right now. It's 4,000, you have to show 4,000 US dollars equivalent with the exchange rate, I guess, today. Mm-hmm. So if you're taking, can I just, go back slightly? So if you're looking at a temporal for a year, I guess you have to show that you have a year's worth of 4,000 pesos per month in your bank account. Is that correct?
You have
or just evidence that it's coming into your bank account on a regular. How many months in advance would you have to show that you've been receiving that $4,000?
6 months, not 1 year.
6 months.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you have two ways to show that you have the financial resources. You can show that in the past 6 months you receive constant deposits, or in the past 12 months that you have savings. But those savings are higher. It has to be right now above 70,000 US dollars in savings.
In savings to get a 1 year temporal visa.
To get a temporal, yeah.
For 1 year or 2 years?
No, it's just a temporal.
Oh,
they only when you go to the consulate, they only give you temporal or permanente. Once you get here and you are in the process, they will give you the 1 year temporal.
Okay. The first, okay, that's okay. You don't get straight 2 year temporal.
No,
it's 1 year. Okay.
No.
And so, how does that financial requirement change when you come in and get a permanente? Is it the same requirement for a temporal for 1 year? Temporal compared to coming in and going directly to a permanente?
No, a permanente is like 50% more to get, and plus.
So it's 158,000.
No. Actually, for permanente, if you want savings, I believe it's above 400,000.
Okay, so coming in on savings.
Sorry.
That's like we can take that out.
250,000, I would say.
So coming in as a permanente, you have the savings you would have to show in your bank account 250,000 US dollars.
Yeah.
And can you do it on receiving a monthly amount as well? Like the temporal.
Yeah, that would be, but it would be some place around 7,000 a month.
So you have to show investments, a pension, 7,000 coming in per month.
Something that it's important to say is that for a permanente, you are supposed to be retired. That is something.
That's the regimen. That's the regimen you're going to come in.
That is
the status that you're going to be applying for the visa upon.
When you are willing to get a permanente, the law says that if you are going to a consulate and you want to be a permanente, you need to be a retired person, and that is something pretty different. Down here, to be a retired person means that you're not working, but that you are also collecting the benefits from your government. And I believe that more and more consulates are requiring, at least from people who comes from the States, that letter from Social Security saying how much are they getting per month. That's what makes them retire people according to the Mexican government. Not just not working, is prove that you're not working and you are collecting. So we still have a lot of people who do not qualify because they're not getting that money yet.
So they have to come in on savings.
They can come on savings, or they can come. Something that it's pretty interesting, Rich, is this idea that people has that a permanente is the best. And I always say just it might be less complicated, and I believe that a lot of people could qualify, and that way we can remove this idea that the fact that the minimum wage has increased doesn't allow people to come to live to Mexico. You can go and apply for a temporal. The income is way lower, and you can live as a temporal 1 year, and then you can make renewals. And at the time you make the renewals, you can buy 3 years in a row. So that means you got the visa, you got your initial temporal 1 year, and then you make the renewal, and you can live 4 years as a temporal. And at the end of the 4 years,
automatically
you become a permanente.
You apply for it, but you kind of automatically become a permanente.
Yeah, because the law says that a temporal, after 4 years living under a temporal, can become a permanente. And at that point, if you are not collecting Social Security, or your funds are still not in the level of a permanente, you are not required to show that. You can become a permanente by that way. And that's it. Of course, you had to deal with the renewals, but it's an easier way, and that secures you. And something that people is, I believe, afraid is like, a new government is coming. Are the laws going to be changed? For instance, I have been working all these years, this kind of processes. And
22 years.
Yes, and I have seen that when the old law, they approved the new law and it was enforced, there are the specific articles in the law saying the people under the older categories are going to become this and this and this. You are a case like that. You had an FM2. You become a temporal and then a permanente. So if that change, if you get a temporal and then there are changes, your rights are going to be preserved and you eventually will become a permanent.
Lots of information today, guys. I'm learning something too. So, I mean, it's always changing, isn't it? The laws are always adjusting.
I believe it would be more administrative procedures and maybe criteria, not that the law.
The law itself isn't. It's
Yes.
more the criteria within the law.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Got you. No, really great information. Really great information. Again, guys, if we're not covering everything, feel free to leave a message in the comments or send an email to Alvaro. I'll put his email here on the screen so you can be in contact with him directly. Should we talk about citizenship? Because it's an area I'm sure a very small percentage ask for citizenship, but it's an interesting area, and I'm sure there are people maybe that are watching this that are thinking they've been here for a certain amount of time. Can you talk about the requirements?
Yes.
Let's talk about that. What are the requirements? How many years do you have to be a temporal or permanente to become a citizen of Mexico? And what do you have to do to become a citizen of Mexico?
Okay.
Do you speak Spanish? Yeah.
Of course.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna do that briefly because
are we okay for time?
Yeah, but don't worry about that. But no, because the immigration requirements are, it's a long list. You need to be basically a resident of Mexico the past 5 years, and you have to prove that with the proper immigration documents, and they care about how far you have been out of Mexico in the past 2 years. You cannot be out of Mexico more than 6 months in the past 2 years to apply. And we really don't care. Temporal and permanente apply for Mexican citizenship, but the temporal has to be always current, and you cannot apply with certain amount of time. We need your birth certificate, and your birth certificate needs to be brought and translated into Spanish. Apostille, of
from
course.
From the country of origin.
Yes. And the thing is, has to be translated into Spanish. And once we have all that and we check entries and we check names, because a lot of people, something that it's really important to know about if you're considering moving to Mexico, in Mexico, names do not change. It's really difficult. Married ladies, we in Mexico, we have 2 last names. We inherit our fathers and our mothers. And women married used to remove their mother's last name to put their husband's. Not anymore. Passports and federal agencies are not doing that because it was a long complication. But if you changed your name, or a lady back in the States changed her name and is willing to become a Mexican, now we have to deal because her birth certificate will have her maiden name and her passport and her permanente will have her married name. So we have to make sure everything matches. Once we have that, we need to apply for records to make sure you haven't made a felony or misdemeanor while living here, make payments.
Criminal record check. Yep.
Yes, and state and federal ones. And once you have everything, you need to go and apply because you have to pass the test. And the law says that you need to prove that you are integrated into the country and to the culture, that you know the history and you know the language. So this breaks into 2, history and culture test and Spanish test. What we do is, if you come from a Latin American country, you are a Spanish speaker, so they gave up that and they only do history in Spanish. But what they do here in the area with us, with the Chapala no Spanish, is if you are over 60, they drop the history and culture test, but you still have to do the Spanish. It's a small test, but you have to pass that. And the process is long. Once you pass, it would take about a year for them to respond.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And once they come back to you, they will give you a naturalization certificate, and then you are able to apply for a Mexican passport. And that
your INI, your voting card and everything.
Your voting card, and as a Mexican citizen, you can buy land in the coast.
So you don't have to do fideicomisos.
Yeah. you can't forget about the fideicomiso.
You don't have to worry about fideicomisos anymore. I mean, there are lots of benefits.
Yes.
There are lots. We won't get into the pros and cons about becoming a Mexican citizen. I'm sure you guys, if you have some questions about that, otherwise this video is going to be way too long. And Alvaro actually has to go, and Alvaro comes to town a couple of times a week, and you will always find him at Lake Chapala Society every Thursday morning from 11 till...
from around 11 to almost 1 p.m.
11 till 1. And we're at 11:25, so Alvaro's going to run over there right now. He's given me some very precious time of his explaining this whole process, guys. I think we'll close off the video because I think we covered so much.
Okay.
And I mean, it's hard to cover everything. Like I say, you have more questions for Alvaro, feel free to email him. This is his email across the screen, guys. And that's it from now. If you haven't already, consider subscribing, hit that notification button, and give the video a thumbs up. Alvaro, final words to you, my guest.
Gracias. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for giving me the space to talk about all these things that we work daily. And of course, if you decide to come, please give us a call.
He's the man. He can sort your visas out, give you advice, walk you through the process, guys. Literally hold your hand as soon as you come to Mexico, walk you through the process. Make it as smooth as possible. He's done it to no end of, numerous clients of mine, and they always speak so highly of Alvaro. That's why I was like, it was about time to bring you on video.
Gracias.
And hopefully encourage more people to use your really great service.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, sir.
Hopefully.
Muchísimas gracias a ti.
Gracias a ti.
Felicidades con su trabajo y muy buen hecho.
Gracias.
He has great. That's it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video. Hasta luego, amigos.
Gracias.